Hello and welcome to Corpse Club, the official podcast of dailydead.com. This is your co-host, Bryan Christopher, and I am being joined today by Scott Drebit and Derek Anderson. We have the three horsemen of the apocalypse for this holiday episode. How are you doing, gents?
Rides again.
Man, our bugle player sucks.
It's the worst.
Except this time we're riding in on reindeer for the holidays.
Yes, because it's Christmas.
And we've got such a holiday trio of films: Heretic, Getaway, and Speak No Evil. Because these are all, when I think holidays, these are the movies that I think. Before we do get started, how are you doing, gents? You ready for a spooky holiday season?
Christmas is always spooky around my place, just because it's very crowded and noisy, and you never know when you're going to get a butter knife in your side. When you get shanked by a family member at Christmas, it's very likely in my household, just because A, there's so many people, and B, I have some grudges, and so it's a scary time for everyone else.
It turns into an impromptu Festivus celebration.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know why, Scott. Whenever I think of you at the end of the holiday, I always think of that one meme of that little like toddler corpse from Terrified, I think it is, where it's like this kid is just like almost like Ash.
Oh,
Yep,
eating
yep.
his cereal at the table.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
The
me.
morning after.
That's me. Holy, holy fucking shit. Merry Christmas. Where's the Tylenol? Wasn't that
Oh
from
yeah.
Christmas Vacations?
The true Christmas horror movie.
That's right.
How about you, Derek? Any spooky holiday traditions you got coming up, or just hanging with the family?
Yeah, we kind of been doing a streak of holiday parties with family every weekend, and we're gonna continue that into the holidays, and then get together with some family on Christmas Day. I think it's gonna be a pretty chill Christmas Eve though, so maybe it'd be kind of fun to sneak in a movie or two if possible. I know I've probably actually seen Bob Clark's A Christmas Story more than any other movie in my life, just because I've always watched the 24-hour marathon. So it would be kind of fun to maybe slip in some like Black Christmas in there as well, but we'll see what happens. It's I know for a fact though that this year I get to watch Christmas Evil finally, so that will be the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, yeah. For those listening, depending on when this comes out, it's not going to come out beforehand. So you've probably already joined us at this point, or you missed it, in which case you're all dead to us, and you no. So we for those who are familiar, we have a Twitch stream, and yeah, by the time this comes out, this will already have happened. We'll have watched Christmas Evil, which is a big favorite with the Daily Dead family. I think we're all pretty big fans of it. So
Hmm.
I love that movie. Fiona Apple's dad, Scott, save me. Name
Oh,
Brandon.
come on. Taggart, Taggart,
Yeah.
Taggart.
See, I knew we'd get there. We'd get there together. Just an absolute like tour de force performance as this poor unhinged Santa fanatic who is recovering from the trauma of seeing his parents do Chris Kingle kink cosplay, which I mean I get that would freak me out too, but it's that will forever be something that like I think that might be my favorite like motivation for someone to snap because he saw their parents getting busy while his dad was dressed as Santa Claus.
Gives that song a whole new meaning.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
I
I'm really
Uh,
mean,
excited.
I've lived through the trauma of part of that scenario, seeing the beast with two backs of Mother and Padre Drebit when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And that was horrifying. But to combine that with someone, that I genuinely love, like Santa, put that together and oh yeah,
I've
Especially
I'd
been
at
be
an
in the
there.
age when
same
you
boat.
you think
I'd be in
Santa's
the
still
same boat.
real, and well, he is real. He's always in our hearts, but
What the
And
fuck?
sometimes he's in our moms.
That's well. Heyo,
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, on that
We,
note, why
we,
don't we go to our first
Yeah.
movie? So we are kicking things off with a movie from Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who were co-writers on A Quiet Place. And this is, I think, a very different movie, one that I was not going into thinking I was going to love as much as I did. We're going to talk Heretic or Heretic if you're from the Midwest, where Derek Anderson and his family are from. Um, so yeah,
Hereditary and hereditary. Maybe that's where it comes from. I don't know.
Heretopothecary. I don't know where there's a pharmacy involved. So for those who are not familiar, it stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. Thatcher and East play two Mormon missionaries who show up at the doorstep of Hugh Grant's character, looking to spread the word of the Church of Latter-day Saints. He seems like someone who is very interested in having this conversation, and he is. But you find out as they start having this conversation, his motivations are far more sinister than just someone who wants to have a simple discussion about faith and religion. This is one of those movies where it is really hard to get into the nitty-gritty of the plot because of the way that it unravels. But I will just come out and say I think this might be my favorite, and it really surprised me too, because movies that like horror movies that are based on religion, or horror movies that have like religious characters, usually really lean into hyperbole and almost caricature, where you have these religious zealots. Like the thing that always comes up for my head is from The Mist, where you have that one woman who is just an absolute over the top, just like crazy religious zealot, or from Midnight Mass, you have a similar. Honestly, given where we are with American politics and the people who have just voted in Donald Trump, I'm like, I don't need to see these people on my screen. I see them just walking around. And so like, that need for escapism is like, I don't know if I really want to do religious horror. This movie approaches discussions of faith and logic and reason in such interesting ways that you could fall into so many traps when having this discussion. You could fall into like tropes, you could fall into caricature, and it looks like the movie is going to go that way with these two Mormon missionaries. We have Sister Barnes and Sister, and when they're introduced, they do seem somewhat like stereotypical like religious missionaries. They are kind of like, talking about how they have looked at pornography, but they're dismissive of it. They just kind of have what seems like very like shallow discussions about about God and faith, and they're introduced as being very nice. And then you get Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, who they really lean into that Hugh Grant charm to kind of get you in the door, and then turn that into something a lot more sinister and twisted while you're figuring out, like, while these characters are figuring out, should we leave? There's parts where they figure out like we should leave, but we can't leave. It's just the way that it progresses. What impresses me throughout all of it is that it never comes off as either stereotype or like they're having a discussion where like it just becomes like a pedantic, like, well, you have to understand both sides. Like it introduces a level of complexity and nuance when it comes to religion and when it comes to faith that doesn't weaken the message. Like I think the writers are pretty I don't think they leave a lot of wiggle room in terms of where they stand and where if they believe in like religion or an afterlife. But that doesn't also mean that like they leave space for this concept that they don't have it all figured. That makes sense. I feel like I'm being like in some ways really vague in the ways I'm talking about this, but and I'm going to take a real chance here, and I'm going to send it over to Derek to talk about what he thinks about it, and I will
Okay,
remind him. Yeah,
Derek, let me know what happens. Okay, let's go.
we'll put Scott on mute,
Well,
and then I will remind Derek that this is a no spoiler review for Heretic.
Here we go.
okay, well that's I'll try. It's funny, I was actually just talking to my mom about this and I was going like step by step through the plot, like, and then this happened, and then oh my gosh, and then you'll never believe what happened next. And like
So you got it out of your system?
yeah, I think I did. I think I did. But yeah, I went into this I've definitely been a fan of Scott Beck and Brian Woods from their previous work and had not I mean kind of knew okay it deals with religion, but I was really impressed with how they dealt with that topic and how it kind of it's it's so like tied to the plot without giving anything away. Like it really is interwoven into every step of what happens when they enter this house that Hugh Grant's character lives in. And it's such a great character piece. It's like I wouldn't even call it slow burn, but just like the tension in it is just comes from the conversation rather than I mean, there's definitely some good like jump scare elements in there, but it's really like a lot of it hinges on this like old school dialogue, like a lot of monologuing, but it never feels drawn out. Like it's just so juicy, like what the topics that they get into and how it's like this chess game between Hugh Grant's character and then Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, who play the Mormon like missionaries that are going door to door. And there's also a Topher Grace playing a character in there as well. That is,
I didn't even recognize him at first. Like it took me like
yeah,
he was on screen for like a total of I think 10 minutes, and it took me like 5 minutes into him being on screen. I'm like, is that Topher Grace? Because he doesn't talk
so
for a long time. He spends
right.
a lot of time on screen, like because he's a very kind of like tertiary character, and so yeah, he
Hmm.
doesn't like. I didn't realize how much of recognizing Topher Grace is recognizing his voice.
Yep,
And so
yep.
if he's not talking and he's got like a white wig on, like I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, just it's very, but that kind of goes with the whole movie, like where it's this very, you almost forget who you're watching because these characters are so good and they're so well written. And it's like, and they, like you mentioned, they lean into Hugh Grant playing this like charming guy that we've seen in like the rom-coms, in the 2000s and the 90s. But he's kind of over the last decade really taken some different roles and kind of shown that he's got such a great range. And he plays like sinister without like doing the mustache twirling. Like he just really does a good job of being very, I don't know, very interesting in his delivery and almost where to the point where you start to wonder, well, can they trust him or is he really, like there's this great like everything is not necessarily as it seems, like what the right way is, it's very interesting how they all lay it out. So it's awesome, Scott. Yeah, I think I'm really curious what you'll think when you see it.
Well, I am so impressed with that synopsis. You did not spoil anything there. This is
Yes.
unprecedented, Brian. I mean, golf clap.
Yeah.
We have to go golf
Woo!
clap. That's a Christmas miracle right there is
That
what
is
that is.
the one thing I did give away is that Topher Grace is in it. So if you were
That's
hoping to
fine.
be,
Surprised
That
by
surprised
was
by
supposed
that,
to
Topher
be
Grace,
that was supposed to be an Easter egg. Damn it.
right?
but he is in the opening credits. So I mean, it's not like you wouldn't know that watching the movie. But it's yeah, it's interesting. It's
No, I
I'm
look
glad I
forward to it.
checked this one out.
I mean, the trailer is, and it's just a movie that I kind of missed the windows of seeing it in the
Hmm.
theater, so I'll have to wait for till I can rent it or whatever at home here. But yeah, it just from the trailer, the concept of it just really got me, and Hugh Grant's performance, even in the trailer alone, was enough to make sure I was there. As well, they have a good reputation as writers. I like their work, and yeah, I would say it's other than Nosferatu in a week or so, probably my most anticipated film to try to squeeze in
Mhm.
before the end of the year.
Hugh Grant, like he is so good in this, and this role suits him so well. It almost seems like it was written for him. I don't know for sure, like one way or the other, if it, but he's definitely like he is definitely embracing his villain era, like between this and in a decidedly not horror movie, but he plays the bad guy in the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out last year, I think it was,
Oh,
and that was
yep,
also
yep.
he's great in that too, but. I think what was another surprising element of this is that while in a lot of ways it is his show, this movie works because Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East are so game to keep up with him. Like they are, I don't know, movies.
Mhm.
I think I always have a soft spot for movies that are not only good but surprise me. So sometimes like movies do like this, they benefit from me going in with maybe like lower expectations. But when a movie can so utterly just like surprise me like this, and a big part of that was Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East. They're not just like cardboard cutouts to kind of like stand in and be talked at by Hugh Grant. Like they absolutely bring as much as he is to the whole thing. And their kind of their tension and their uncertainty is so real and relatable that you understand why they stick around in this situation. And then the movie is good at like not making you suspend disbelief too long, where they have good ways of explaining where what's these girls aren't idiots, and so they do figure out like, okay, we need to not be here anymore in a certain, but then the movie has really interesting ways to explain why they can't leave. So it is, yeah, it is a really smart movie. Derek, you mentioned that it builds tension a lot. It's 111 minutes. And Scott, you and I
Mhm.
have talked a lot about like anytime you're going over 90, that's a red flag. It did not feel like anything should have been cut out of that 100 minutes. It was all
Awesome.
really tight. It all went really, really fast. And yeah, I cannot, I want to watch it again just because I feel like
Yep.
this is another, I think another reason I love it so much is that it falls in the same category as Hellraiser, where narratively, it's a really simple story. There's not anything super complex going on, but the themes and the discussion you can have about it, I think are just things that like I feel like 10 different people could talk about this and talk about 10 different things that they took, and all of them make sense. So yeah, it's something I
Mhm.
want to return to. I want to talk to as many people as possible who have seen it just to kind of get their take on it. Yeah, love this. And yeah, I could just kind of like gush over it for the entire episode. But rather than that, why don't we move to Derek and your movie, Getaway
Ooh, yes.
or
Oh, and
Getaway?
and before we get away, what would you rate your
I always
experience with?
forget about this. This is the one thing that I will never remember as a host. So honestly, I 5 out of 5 on this one. I love this
Hmm.
movie. Yeah, it is because I have a very like 3 stars is liked it, 4 stars is really liked it, and five is
I'm in the same category. I think it's a five for me because I really wouldn't change anything about it. Like there's nothing that I think they needed to do differently other than maybe have it be pronounced heretic, but that's just my own
Mm,
personal
mm, yeah, that's a marketing
preference.
problem.
But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
marketing.
yeah. Yeah, that's the people at A24 need to have a discussion on that.
but yeah, it was, and like you, I also want to rewatch it. So, and I think there's people that I know that would like this movie too. Like it's something that's a little more, I think, accessible than just, I mean, yeah, there's some intense moments, but I think it's something you could like show other people that maybe, you know, maybe horror's not necessarily always their jam, but like this is a really good tension
Yeah.
fueled thriller. And that brings me to Getaway, which is also a lot of tension, but a very different kind of movie than Heretic. There, I got it right. So Getaway, if for those unfamiliar, is a new movie. It's kind of out as of this recording. It's out in limited theaters, but it will be coming to Shudder in the States on January 10th. So it'll be right after the new year, and it's pronounced getaway, but it's really two words, like get away. So it's a little clever wordplay there. And this, for those unfamiliar, this is written by Nick Frost, frequent collaborator of Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. Um, and the amazing, I love the Cornetto trilogy and all the things they did together. But Nick Frost wrote the screenplay for this, and he also stars in the movie, and it's directed by Stefan Hars. And the movie is kind of like this horror comedy. It follows this family that called the Smith family, and they are going on this really much needed vacation to this very isolated Swedish island called Svalta. And it's kind of got this familiar setup of like this family is going to this unfamiliar place, and all the locals are like, when they get there, they're like, "Why are you here? You should not be here right now. This is the one time a year where we do this festival, and it's a sacred festival, and we don't want outsiders coming to our island." But they're like, "Well, we rented this great Airbnb. We're all excited. We need this vacation, so we're gonna stay here anyway." But it's like it's very on the nose. Like they literally get off the ferry, and the whole town's just standing there, like staring at them, and it's great, like great welcome mat. And as the town starts to gear up for this festival, and it's got all these like different like props and like these big headed costumes and things, like this kind of Wicker Man vibe that they're preparing for. And the village elders are very angry that they're there. And so all this tension builds up, and they're just kind of wondering basically, are we going to be the guests of honor at this festival, and what's going to happen to us? So I shouldn't say any more than that. But what I will say is it basically is like a subversion of the folk horror genre, and it's this parody of it. So there's a lot of like winks at the camera of very much like a midsummer Wicker Man type of setting. And so they're finding a lot of humor in that. But then like these bodies start to pile up, and this family's kind of caught in the middle. It's very interesting. So
So Derek, let me ask, because I know, we're talking about a British movie, so when they say
mhm,
holiday, they're talking about vacation. But
correct.
is this Sweden in winter, or is this like Sweden in summer?
Very good question. It is in like summer.
Ah,
So it's, yep.
you
It's
can't make the case for this possibly being like a holiday season tradition kind of a.
unfortunately, I mean, in name only, maybe because it is like, yeah, we're on holiday and that type of language. But yeah, it's very much like a summer, more like a summer like harvest festival. So maybe even like autumn. But yeah, so definitely no snow though. It's a lot of fun. This movie is probably one of the, this while Heretic might be one of my favorite, maybe my favorite movie. This is maybe the one that I had the most fun with
Mm.
in 2024, just because going into it, not really knowing what to expect, and then like just being like in awe of what they pulled off, or just how far they pushed the envelope. And yeah, it's good. And it so Nick Frost, and then his wife is played by Osling B, who's a really really funny comedian. And then their kids are like young adult age, so it's kind of like that age where they don't really want to be with their mom and dad. There's a lot of family kind of interactions that there's a lot of humor that comes out of that, and then things get very creepy as well. So a
So it's
lot of
kind of
fun.
a National Lampoon's Vacation meets like
Ooh,
Wicker Man
that's
or something like that.
I was
that's a
just,
really good way to
that's
put it.
exactly what
Yeah,
I was thinking
that's a
too,
really good
Brian.
way to put it.
Nice,
But
nice.
I wish I could say more, but it's also like one where I really don't want to talk about anything like in the second half of the movie, because it would totally just ruin it
So
for you.
that's
So
where things take a turn, is in the second half of the movie.
yeah, yeah, there's a when the
Here he
festival
goes.
really gets underway, that's when things
This is on me. I'm
get
drawing,
get
I'm
nuts.
drawing, I'm
Yeah,
drawing
we
out
keep
Derek like
prodding.
the, yeah, that's me. Sorry.
I feel like, and I'm going to do the same
Great.
thing because I am curious. So this is Nick Frost kind of writing this solo, and I feel like when he and Simon Pegg get together, they have a very distinctive style. The
Hmm.
Cornetto trilogy. The
Yes.
their sensibilities and like the way they approach movies is very evident in all three of those. Do you see the shades of that here, or do you find Nick Frost doing writing on his own kind of gives a different flavor?
It's a little bit of both because I was reminded of Hot Fuzz a lot watching this, and I love Hot Fuzz. I think that's my favorite of the movies they did
I
together.
was gonna say hot take.
It's
Hot Fuzz is better than Shaun of the Dead. I love
I
Shaun of the Dead, but
Yep.
I will go back to Hot Fuzz more than I will go back to Shaun of the
I would agree with that. Just and like you, I love Shaun of the Dead, but I quote Hot Fuzz a lot more, and I just find the humor like throughout the whole movie consistently, like just like really, really gets me. So I would say there's a lot of that, but then he also does. I mean, it's definitely like different though too. It's not like he's just trying to completely replicate what he's done before. Like I feel like he's got his own distinct like I remember I was talking with the cast and crew of this on Daily Dead, and they were kind of talking about the polite horror of it. Like there's a very like kind of bumbling, like, oh, I'm sorry, like, there's blood everywhere, but I don't want to be impolite. And we're just gonna go over here now. And there's just that kind of like you don't want to be rude even when your life's on the line kind of
Yeah.
humor. So it's very much like they're leaning into that a little bit more. And Nick Frost as like he's just leaning into that like dad character, like the dad humor, which he's just like really, really good at. I feel like he's kind of pushing into that a little bit more. But if you do like Hot Fuzz and that type of humor, there's definitely a lot to like here as well.
And yeah, I mean, I guess he is like he's 52 now. I was looking about like a couple of like just had a couple of we are all turning to dust moments because yeah, he's 52, and I just also saw that Shaun of the Dead turned 20 this year. That
Mhm.
can't
Oh,
be right. That cannot be
that's
right.
that's crazy. Yeah, that is nuts. Like I remember when
But
that was like a new like that would be on TV and it was like, oh, this just came out a few years ago. It'd be on like FX and those were the days.
but I appreciate if he is taking that evolution of because you look at his character in Shaun of the Dead who is just like unreliable stoner, and now he's like really leaning into like dad humor.
Yeah.
It's fun to see that kind of evolution. So yeah, this is definitely one I want.
Yeah.
And he was in another movie that's also on Shudder right now called Black Cab, where he plays like this rideshare driver, and he also like co-wrote that one as well. So he's starting to, and he plays like a really great, like you don't know, is this guy, is very contained, but is this guy like evil or is he like just messing around? But there's this like twisted kind of comedy in that one that he does really well too. So it's fun to see him kind of go out on his own and do some really cool stuff.
What rating do you give this one?
I would probably go 4.5 out of 5.
All right, Scott, and we are going to cap things off with you and the 2024 remake of Speak No Evil.
Yeah, this turned out to be one of my favorites thus far of the year. Uh, British writer-director James Watkins, who made Eden Lake some years back, and he did the Woman in Black remake or new version, whichever you want to call it, does a really great job, I think, of creating tension, suspense, and also I think the film's greatest strength, being a remake, and watching as we've watched over the years, when we see foreign films get remade for a North American audience, an English-speaking audience. The Vanishing, Michael Hanke's remake of his own Funny Games. What I like about this is compared to the original Dutch version from 2 years ago by Christian Tafdrup, is that film has a very nihilistic ending. For those who don't know, the basic setup of both stories is couple in a strange land meet another friendly couple who are vacationing there, and the two couples hit it off. They each have a child. The protagonists of each story go and spend a weekend with the antagonists that they don't know are antagonists at this point. The original has, as I said, a very nihilistic ending. The American version, and this is what I give it credit for, it's one of its many strengths, is that it does not have that nihilistic ending. Now, I understand why some people would say that it's a cop out, etc. Even the original director himself, he says, these Americans, they have to always have their happy endings. But here's the thing. The original version has its nihilistic ending and its nihilistic uh, manifesto or whatever you want to say. Everything is shit and don't trust anyone. Well, this remake doesn't take itself that seriously, and it actually amplifies the satire of um, social interaction between couples, the politeness, the how we don't reveal our true self and we lie to people that we're trying to impress and become friends with. And it plays those up so wonderfully in the performance of James McAvoy, who plays our big baddie, as everyone has seen in the trailer. But he gives a truly wonderfully sinister, hilarious performance of a very alpha male compared to Scoot McNairy's Ben, who is anything but. He's very much a passenger, and his wife, Mackenzie Day, played by Mackenzie Davis, kind of leads. She rides the motorcycle, he's sidecar always. And this film plays that up in a very humorous way, to me anyway, darkly humorous. But again, it doesn't have that nihilistic ending, sets it apart from the other version. Does this the original director's comments, I say, but you have your version. Did you want someone to make an exact copy of your version? Is your ending, is that your whole movie? I don't think so. The original is a very chilling, um, gripping movie, but yeah, the ending is as bleak as hell. Why can't it have a different ending and still contain all that great satire and a real solid amount of thrills and tension as well? It's rare to see a remake that can sit side by side with the original. But if I'm going to be throwing one on, it's going to be this one because I'll be smiling at the end of this one as opposed to the original, which I once I've seen a more upbeat ending, I just can't go back to the nihilistic one because I don't think it serves the purpose of the biggest strengths of the film. I don't think it serves as the remake does, which is to say they are two different movies. They're two different vibes. They're both excellent, but this remake is definitely one of my favorite horror films, suspense films, thrillers of the year.
And I think there's definitely room for both, like nihilism, because yeah, I think there is something to be said about addressing that in the real world, things don't often or always end up with a happy ending or even
Of course.
a bittersweet ending. Sometimes things just suck. And and I think it is, there's some truth to the idea that American mainstream audiences won't go for nihilistic endings, but Scott, you've talked a lot about how, like, it's not that the American pop culture scene has never had an appetite for nihilism. Like, most early
Hmm.
1970s movies are just steeped in
Sure.
nihilism.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
creature features, like you look at the ending of Kingdom of the Spiders, that's like one of the things, the running jokes that we have is just like this silly creature feature is just like, oh, that was bleak, the way that
Yeah.
movie ends.
Yeah.
But but it's also not necessarily a movie where it's like that bleak ending doesn't make that. And
Yeah.
it's like you're saying here, a bleak ending doesn't have to make or break. You can water down a movie, still have a bleak ending, and you can still have a movie be really potent and convey a strong message and not have it have a nihilistic ending.
Yeah.
So it's just
Well, see,
it's
and yeah, and another, it's not, uh, it hasn't been dumbed down, quote unquote, for, American audiences. It's a smart movie. It's well written. It's really well acted. It's very well directed. And just as horror fans, it's nice to get a film every once in a while where the people are so smart slash stupid. And it's a great example of how people get sucked back into things and how that is a screen and how the screenwriter attempts to do that. And it's fun. What can I say? It's a fun movie. It's suspenseful. It's very funny. And come awards time, I think McAvoy should be shown some love.
I also think this idea of like politeness being your downfall reminds me of another fantastic movie, The Invitation,
Yeah,
from 2015,
Yes.
yeah,
where
Yes.
you have this group of people who are at this dinner party that you realize like very quickly it's like, oh, this is a cult, but people just they can't pull themselves away for the sake of like, well, what if they're not and we seem rude?
it's the
Like
social
this,
niceties, right?
yeah,
Kills
yeah.
you,
Yep.
literally.
Especially
It,
Minnesota nice.
But yeah, I will admit this is one that I have not seen. I don't know if I will see it mainly because I I suffer from anxiety, and this is a movie that I think would make my like I would grind my teeth down to the watching a movie like this, and I think it's to its credit. It's just like just watching the trailer and seeing just like James McAvoy's like mannerisms and facial expressions, like that
Yeah,
one scene where he's doing that smile, and you can
yeah,
tell it's like a it's 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 like an alien trying to like replicate a human being smiling and just utterly failing at it. Like I couldn't I just my heart my pulse is going up just thinking about that. And yes, I get I the whole point of horror is for that to happen. But like for me, it's just like I just see that being like too much where it just like I would like crack my jaw from just
Mm.
clenching it too
Well,
hard.
I won't. Well, I'll try a little, then I'll just try a little harder to convince you, and then I'll let it go because I really do think you would enjoy it because McAvoy's performance is a satire of the alpha male, and it's very, very funny. And him and
Mm.
and as the movie goes on, he doesn't, and the protagonists get some power. You realize he's just a man and not even, a good man.
Like a
And
house
nor
of
is
cards
he,
kind of thing.
yeah, 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 yeah. And he just gets smaller as the movie kind of goes on. So I think if you came at it from just a humorous point of view and like I said, the satire of that social, that social contract between people, then I think you'd really enjoy it. I don't think necessarily the suspense and tension would get you so much that it would overwhelm the satire and the humor in it that I think you would really enjoy. But that's
Well,
all I'll say about that.
whenever someone wants to take the piss out of toxic masculinity, I'm on board. So maybe you've convinced me.
It's very much that's a big proponent of it. It really
Well,
is. Yeah. So
how
it's
about you,
great.
Dirk? Is this on your to watch list or?
It is. This is one that it was one that I planned on seeing in theaters, but never got around to. And it was kind of that late September, early October where there's a lot of stuff coming out. So just, I never quite got around to this one, but I definitely do want to see it, especially James McAvoy after seeing him in Split and all the different types of characters he could play. Like seeing him take a role like this on, I think is really interesting. And I honestly I'd never seen the original either, so I'm kind of new. I know about the original's reputation, so I knew that this one might be similarly bleak, but hearing that it kind of does its own thing too is really cool. So I kind of want to
Yeah,
see it now a little bit more.
I would say if there's definitely a watch order for
Okay.
them, and it's watch the original first
Oh, okay.
and then watch
Okay.
the remake. Otherwise, you're gonna totally be bummed out by watching the McAvoy one and then watching the Dutch one where they're, chucking them into a pit and chucking rocks at them.
Okay.
Fun.
Yeah, that
You know
Well,
what I'm saying?
now I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
picturing the stoning scene from Life of Brian from Monty
Right.
Python. I'm guessing it's a different energy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
Scott, what do you give? What rating do you give the Speak No Evil remake.
I give it a 4.5. I get it would be a
Mm,
4.
wow.
Uh, if it wasn't a remake, it would just be a solid 4 by itself as a great thriller. But because it's a remake that pulls it off so well, I'm giving it that extra bump to 4.5 for difficulty.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, everyone, we've got three big recommends for this this go around. So I'm glad
Yeah.
everybody had glad we're coming to the table with good viewing experiences. That's awesome. Well, we're just about, I think, to the end, but before we go, I want to take a little bit to maybe tease what we're looking forward to. Because when folks are listening to this, it's either going to be right at the tail end of 2024, or you might be listening to us at the dawn of 2025. What are we looking forward to horror wise? What's one little tease of something that you're looking forward to seeing in the next year? Let's start with Derek. What are you looking for?
Okay, so mine is one that recently got its first trailer, and that is 28 years later, which is getting the band back together of the Danny Boyle and Alex Garland experience, as I like to think of them. Like one's on guitar, the other's singing, and
I, I like how for your band it's just a singer and a guitarist.
Guitar. What? No synth drums?
I mean, that's on the well, yeah, we might have to make it just like a Casio keyboard or something with all the bells and whistles. But it's so and I've always loved the 28. I guess you would just call it the 28 franchise. But I love 28 Days Later, but I also really like 28 Weeks Later, and I feel like more people have come around to that one. I know it's not Boyle and Garland together on that one, but I just like what they've done with the story, and I'm really curious to see like Danny and Alex come back to this. And after so many years, I know it hasn't been 28 years quite yet, but just seeing what the world looks like in a zombie apocalypse that many years down the road, I think would be really interesting. And just to see, what they do in this space again. Like I've pretty much liked most everything that Alex Garland has done as a writer and director, and seeing like Sunshine is one of my favorite movies as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see those two back together. And I believe it's going to be like a two, like they have another one. It's kind of like a, if I understand it correctly, it's like a two-part kind of thing where I think like Nia DaCosta is going to do one, something like that. But I'm kind of curious what this will lead to. Like this could really open up that whole world again.
28 decades later.
Yeah.
You would have thought they
Yeah.
would have figured it out almost 300
Right.
years later, but it's still.
Still a problem.
And
I think that's
fast
one of the
zombies, fast zombies freak me out. So
it's one of the things I'm still trying to figure out because it seemed to be, and I will admit I did not see 28 weeks later, but it seemed like at the end of 28 days later they had basically said like if you can stay away long enough that they all starve to death, like with the amount of turnaround, how long it takes for someone to be infected, like it should be easy to like cut this off. And I know one of the premises from 28 weeks later is that there are unsymptomatic carriers, but I'm just trying to figure out how 28 years later it's still kind of like post-apocalyptic. I'll be interested to see like how they kind of dive into.
yeah, especially because like you said, at the end of 28 days, it seemed like, okay, we can beat this, if we just outlast them. But maybe I know there's this like tagline that the dead have, or like they've evolved, the rage virus has evolved, so maybe they have some way around that, like, oh, it
Mm,
just mutated or something like that. But either way, it'll be fun to, yeah, I'm curious to see them go back into it.
Killer
yeah, I guess we'll
trailer.
we'll find out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it'll be June of 2025, so we'll have to wait about half the year to get to it, but
Well, I'm
it'll be
I'm
here.
I'm firmly in that part of my life where 6 months just goes by after blinking, so it's going to be
Yeah.
here.
Mm, yeah.
Uh,
Wouldn't know
the
about that.
Yeah. Well, Scott, how about you? What are you looking forward to this year?
Oh, that's definitely one. But I'm really anxious for Osgood Perkins, the monkey, based on the Stephen King story. I just watched the trailer today, and holy shit, it looks like a blast. It looks fun, like creepy and fun. I didn't start out as an Osgood Perkins fan. I'm not a big fan of Black Coat's Daughter, Gasp, Shock, and or his second one. But Longlegs, I absolutely love. That's also one of my favorite films of the year. And this comes out only in February. We only have to wait a couple months. But I just watched the trailer today, and again, it just looks like a blast of spooky, silly uh fun, and it actually looks creepy, but it looks like he's really coming into like a fun, a looser kind of phase. And I'm all here for it.
Yeah, because like, yeah, that's not really been his thing in the past. He's usually
No,
kind of more of the, he's the just kind of like dwelling in
very
morose.
staid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I also saw this and I was surprised. When I say saw this, I meant the trailer. I
Yeah.
was surprised like this did not feel like Oz Perkins vibe at all. So to see that's where he's going.
Yeah.
And that it's Stephen King too, like the source material. That should be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Like I forgot about like because I so this was in Skeleton Crew, like they collected it in that
Yeah.
short story collection. I forgot about this story, and then reading about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I do kind of remember that. But I feel like he's going to be able to really do his own thing with it too, and really expand on it. So that's going to be fun.
Oh yeah, it seems very much like just your run of the mill possessed monkey symbol doll,
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah. See it 1,000 times.
right?
Speaking of things you've seen 1,000 times, but I am still looking forward to, we are getting not one, but two new Predator movies, both from Dan Trachtenberg, who I had kind of been off the Predator wagon since maybe the second one. Like Alien versus Predator was fun enough. I didn't see Requiem. I
But I
I think
watched it.
I think I accidentally watched Predators once. I forget why exactly. That was fun. I did not watch The Predator just because I did not hear very many good things about that. So I was just
It's terrible.
I definitely had Predator fatigue. But when Prey came out, oh man, that knocked me just
Mm.
on my ass with just kind of reminding us of what those movies could be. I loved kind of doing it in the new time frame, not new, the old time frame, taking it back to a few hundred years ago. I loved Amber Midthunder. She is amazing in it. So I know this isn't going to be a direct sequel. It's not going to be like a follow-up with Amber Midthunder's character. It's going to be, I think, another period piece. That's what I love, this idea of like, let's just stick Predator in different time periods. Like, and I think that's what this one's going to be. It's going to have Elle Fanning is going to be in it. And yeah, I'm interested in seeing that. And they're being really cagey about, in addition to, it sounds like this one is going to get a theatrical release, yeah, in November of 2025. But they're saying, and this might be some kind of a Netflix release, it might be animated. They're still being real quiet about exactly what it's going to be, but there is going to be another feature-length Predator movie that comes out before that Trachtenberg is also involved with. So I I like this kind of air of mystery of because it seemed like for a little bit that after Prey, like it got good word of mouth, but it kind of came and went on Hulu. I was kind of worried like, oh, maybe this isn't going to go anywhere, but yeah, it looks like they were just biding their time, and now we're going to get two full doses of Predator.
Sweet. Yeah, I would agree. I really enjoyed Prey as well. And I'm like all on board with your assessment of the franchise uh, before and up to that point. I think you're absolutely right too. Prey got right what was the biggest strength, I think, of the first one, which is yes, it is sci-fi, but its root, its strength is in the action genre. And it really did echo, John McTiernan's original to the point where, yeah, let's bring more with the same creator. And like you said, different time periods. I mean, the Predators has always been the star of the movie, except for Arnold, but he was the only dwarf, the Predator himself. So yeah, let's make the Predator the focus, and let's throw them into different worlds. Bring it.
Yeah, I echo all of that because yeah, Prey I thought was just phenomenal. And the fact that they gave the keys of the franchise to the guy that kind of resurrected it and got so much of it right is really encouraging. And hopefully, it seems like he has a lot of creative control over how he tells these stories. So hopefully he's able to kind of do whatever he wants, with especially playing around with different time periods, different settings. Like it's going to be, I think it's almost fun to not know where it's going just because it is like Prey was such a surprise and like, oh, this is so refreshing. So I'm kind of just like ready for it to just watch it the day it comes out and just see what happens. Like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, honestly, I would if they did marketing where they're like, it's a Predator, Dan Trachtenberg's behind it. You will find out when it's set when you walk into the movie theater. I would I would be the first one to buy a ticket. I would love that idea of like, okay, what's it going to be this time? And do that like once a year. And just
Yes,
like,
yes.
just give us one a year
Yep.
and just let us figure out like what time period it's going to be when we get there. I still want a samurai like era
Oh,
set
that would
Predator.
be
I
so
think that would be
cool.
fun.
That would be so cool.
So we'll put that on our future wish list.
Yes.
Oh,
And
all
we
right,
also
folks.
get a new Alien show, right? In
We do
2025 as
Alien
well.
Earth.
So maybe
Yeah.
we're building towards an AVP reunion. No.
God, do we have to?
No,
It
and
went so
it's
well the first time.
yeah. I no, Derek, no.
No, no, no. But I am
Bad
excited
boy.
for I'm excited for them separately though as an
Brian, get
alien.
out that spray bottle again,
Yeah.
would you?
Knob Creek.
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to get us out of here before Derek tries to ruin another good idea. All right. That brings us to the end of the episode. As always, we want to thank you, our listeners. Make sure that you visit corpseclub.com to check out our latest episode. Also, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every rating and review us out. You can also find us on Google Play, SoundCloud, and all your favorite podcast providers. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us anytime at Comcast, or I think I do this every time, Comcast at corpseclub.com. You can reach us at contact at corpseclub.com or on Twitter at Daily Dead News or at Corpse Club and on Instagram and Facebook under Corpse Club. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay scary.